Welcome to Money on Tap, your personal finance headquarters. Money on Tap is where we bring out the professionals, experience, and some fun in what we call three-dimensional investing, utilizing insurance, brokerage, and fee-based planning. That's what we do on this show. We're going to look at all sides of the issues, bring a fully independent planning perspective to the table, wiping away any of the doubt out there that we're going to have a biased opinion here. That's Ben's job. Mine is not. My name is Seth Cressman, and I'm joined here once again with Ben Brayshaw, John Ryder, and Eric Morning. Good morning, guys.
Good morning.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Johnny, you're sounding a little melancholy over there.
John, get in the room, my friend.
What's going on, Johnny?
I don't know. Been one of those weekends.
You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or email us at info@yourmoneyontap.com. You can also find us at Facebook, 3D Investing. We are glad you are aboard with us for this show today. If you are retired and want to stay retired, or you are planning on retiring someday, then this is the show for you.
So, Seth, I think that really covers it for about all of our listeners today. The name of our show today is entitled Monte Carlo, More Than Just a Nice Place to Visit.
We probably could have just said, if you have a heartbeat and you are planning on staying alive, listen.
We targeted you for this show.
No, this is a great show. This is a good show for people to understand the complexity of retirement in probably a very simple, matter of fact, way of kind of talking about it. And I'm excited that this will be really valuable for everyone.
Yeah, Monte Carlo is a tool that we use when working with clients, so we're looking forward to sharing that with you. But before we do that, it's time for Money in the News.
I want to lead us off this morning with our first article. Google, because I just like to say the word, and it always has that star appeal. We're going to shine some lights, throw a little glitter on this show for you guys. Google sent over $9,000 worth of Pixel 3s to a customer who just wanted a refund. So, clarifying, what does that even mean?
I was about to say, what's a Pixel glitter? 3, Seth?
Google's magic wand does this. So the Pixel 3 is a phone, like it's their most recent phone that they're getting into the market. If you haven't taken a look at what they're doing in phones and how they're doing it, it's interesting, right? But apparently a customer wanted a refund, and instead of sending them out a refund, they sent them $9,000 worth of phones.
So this was obviously an error.
Well, so they got the refund for the taxes of $80, but they never got the $900 for the actual device back. They just got 9,000 devices.
Sounds like a zero was added, guys.
And like cash converted to device.
That must have been rather shocking when you opened up the package.
Can you imagine 9,000 phones? I mean, that's not like one box. I mean, these things aren't packed like. I mean, you think about like the box you got your phone in. It's not small. So if you put 9,000 of those things, I mean, just the shipping. Can you imagine like the UPS driver dropping these things off? Like, hey, here's your.
I was going to say I can feel his eye roll as he's dropping off like the 10th box and has another 10 to go.
And you open it up, and it's like phone after phone. You're like,
they better have been different colors. Different colors, at least. Google.
I hope the services were all bundled, because that would get expensive. We'll talk about that later on.
Ooh. A little foreshadowing.
I'm looking at the pictures of the Pixel 3s, and oh my gosh, this must have been like a tractor trailer pulling up to this guy's house. 9,000 of these phones. I mean, the boxes are probably 3 inches by 4 inches by 6 inches or something like that. Some rectangular, traditional phone box. 9,000 of those.
I hate to throw some shade, but I'm going to do it anyway. But I feel this way every time I call Comcast. The bottom line is the person's just not listening. They're just not listening. Because
are they reading the script?
The refund button is next to the 9,000 phone button. and they're just not listening to me.
Google managed to give this user a day later. Google did give the refund, but the person says that they still plan on sending the extra pixels back to the company.
At whose cost?
Yeah, they plan on it.
Yeah.
They're out there somewhere. Somebody's videoing this, and this is going to go on YouTube.
Well, let's see here. We got the our second article for Money in the News. This is an interesting article. I'm actually kind of interested in this one. Check your house for this stuff. What kind of things in your house might be worth big money?
Okay, so we're always talking to people about, hey, how can you look at maybe cutting back here or cutting back there? You know, I think one of the big things that we're always talking with people about is, that Starbucks costs you $5 a shot. Maybe not going there every day would be a good idea, and maybe you can start putting some more money to contribute to your Roth IRA or whatever. Well, this is kind of the opposite. It's talking about stuff that you already have. And is it like a top 10 list? I don't know.
Yeah, this is pretty neat. There's a lot of crazy stuff in here that you would never think of. Number 1, in your attic, look for Boy Scout memorabilia.
None of us have been in the Boy Scouts in our family, so we would be no money there. But Ben, you just raised your hand.
Yes, I have. I was in the Boy Scouts. I was looking at some of these badges. I actually have a couple of them. Yeah.
It doesn't say Awanas. Now there, I would maybe have a few things I could find.
Some
Do you
Moana
think
stuff.
that
Yes.
something more obscure like the Royal Rangers, for instance, like if I could maybe get some of my achievement medals from the Royal Rangers, because I started in the straight arrows and made it all the way to Trailblazer.
Oh.
Uh-huh.
Well, we can see if that's marketable.
I've never even heard of the Royal Rangers. Did your parents make that up, Eric?
No, Ben. No, Ben. I went to church as a kid.
All right, number 2, the irregular 2005 Kansas quarter.
Now, that is kind of wacky because I never had really heard about the 2005 quarter, but we're looking at a picture of one right now, and it says to the right side of George Washington's head there, it says, "In God we rust."
So the T is missing.
A T was missing, which had to make that an extremely valuable coin. What does it say it's worth?
Wow.
$50.
Oh, is that all? Really? I would expect more.
Oh.
I would
But
expect
honestly,
more.
eBay, you get
But honestly,
$50
what
for
we're
that
doing
quarter.
here is we're trying to help the folks continue with their binging in the coffee in the cafe. So
Yes.
the $50 does get them through the week.
It's a nice gift card. So number 3, help me out with the pronunciation here, Eric. Pokemon
Charizard.
Charizard.
Thank you.
Okay.
How did I know you knew how to say that?
I may or may not have 3 boys in the house.
So, Eric, explain to us what a Pokemon Charizard is.
It's a very, how can I say this? It's a dragon.
Oh.
It's a dragon that will attack you. One of the most famous of all of the Pokemon in the Pokédex.
Routinely sells for thousands of dollars on eBay.
I can't tell you how fast I'll be putting that up for sale.
Oh, my gosh.
So something that happened just this last weekend, I was taking Spencer over to Nerds to Go to put together his computer. He bought all this stuff and he wanted to put it together there. They're fantastic. You can go in there. They got this great place that you can just put stuff together. They love to help you. You can buy stuff there too, folks, if you want to or need your computer repaired. So, anyways, we're in Milwaukee and we're driving up, and there's a ton of people in downtown Milwaukee, Oregon, which is not large, and on a Saturday, not a hub, but there's a lot of folks. So I leave Spencer in there, and I take the 2 littles out to go see Dark Horse Comics and do a little walk. There's people everywhere walking around the streets, and this is like 500 people at least walking around looking at their phones. Every single one of them has their phone out looking at it. It was a very surreal experience. I mean, it was creepy. I didn't want to interrupt one of them because maybe if I said something, I might start looking at my phone too.
No, then they bite your neck, and then you start looking at your phone.
Eventually, one of them broke their gaze from the phone, and I was like, hey, what are you doing? There's apparently Pokemon. There was some kind of a event of Pokemon going on.
All right. Well,
you got nothing?
I got nothing on that. I'm going to skip right into number 4 here. AOL CDs.
Remember those back in the day?
America Online.
Yeah.
Yep. AOL CDs. Now, this is interesting. So all those advertising CDs we used to get in the mail, and when I remember getting those too, I mean, all through college and so forth. But those things are selling for hundreds of dollars.
Oh, why? Tell me more.
I don't know. The original giant internet service provider spent an estimated $300 million to send out millions of trial discs in hopes of achieving home internet dominance.
Wait, I think I may have put my finger on it. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but maybe they're making money because you have to pay someone to haul all of that out, and so it's not about having it and getting money as the owner, but it's giving business to the folks that come and shred. It's got to be it.
Could be.
Well, what explains number 5, Obama-bilia?
Yeah, see, this isn't old enough that I would necessarily say this stuff would be in your attic, but maybe. But yeah, campaign posters and so forth, selling for anywhere from $75 to $100. Probably not as much as I would think. I don't think this is necessarily list qualifier, but it's interesting. It's interesting.
Yeah, a lawn sign from Obama's 2004 U.S. Senate run from Illinois sold in January for $75.
Hey, that's more than the quarter.
That is more than a quarter.
That's really funny. Number 6. Now, this is now getting into some interesting... This is getting to an interesting part of our childhood here. Super Nintendo games. Castlevania.
Yeah.
1986, this game debuted. And it sold on eBay this year for more than $400.
Wow.
Other games are selling from that time period for well over $200. So, I think about Nintendo's games and so forth. Like, that stuff's out there.
Seth, I want to bring something from your childhood. American Girl Samantha doll.
Wow, that was low, John. John, that was low.
Holy cow.
Awkward.
I don't know.
John.
I don't know why this is from your
you know
childhood,
what?
but-
These dolls retail.
I love
for
them, okay? I
about
love them.
$100. Yeah. Big fan. Hey,
I'm going to look for the quarter.
I'm surprised it's not a Barbie that we're throwing up here, but no pun intended. So there's American Girl dolls sell for about $100 a pop right off the shelf. And what was it? Samantha doll first came out in 1986, or he was retired in 2008.
And it's $2,000. Wow.
$2,000.
Who are you kidding? It was a ripoff when
like
they first came out, let alone 20 times the price later on. Wow.
It's like an old school Tickle Me Elmo situation right there.
Tickle me Elmo.
Cabbage Patch doll.
Now this number 8 makes more sense. Old cell phones. They're not talking like 10 years ago.
Yeah.
They're talking like the origination
Yeah.
of the brick.
Do you guys remember that back in the days when those came out? I remember being with this is actually years ago, probably in the 80s. I remember this guy had a bag phone in his car as an attorney, and I remember I was a buddy with his nephew, and I remember going somewhere, and he ordered a pizza on this big old bag phone, and 20 minutes later we show up at the store, and there it is, all made ahead of time. It was just the first time I'd ever seen a bag phone being used, but it was just like the one in the picture, that big old thing. Yeah.
Was that the only time that it was actually ready when they said it was going to be?
That's right. Right.
Number 9. We've got the gathering card sets. I'm not familiar with this. It's a Magic set. I don't know if you guys had any experience with this, but I haven't. But
No.
The ultra rare Black Lotus card is the treasure of the series, and one of them recently sold on eBay for $16,000.
Man.
I missed out on that part of my childhood.
Okay. Gosh.
That was the price for one card.
Wow. That makes the baseball card collection just seem...
Yeah, that's more than my Roger Clemens rookie.
Oh, my gosh. Wait. You have a Roger Clemens rookie?
Yeah.
Ah. Jeez. Okay. I've got a Jerry Rice. I don't know.
Not worth $16,000.
No, it's not.
I got a Ken Griffey
It's nowhere
Jr.
close.
rookie in the upper deck set, number 1. Got a few of those. Good
All right, we're
cards.
going to turn this into a baseball card.
There you go.
football card
All right,
show.
number 10. Last one here, folks. Last one.
All right,
Number
let's get
10,
it.
old Apple computers. Now this, when you go to
wow.
I have a friend who has an Apple store, and when you go there, not the the official branded one,
Yeah.
but he fixes. He has all these old Apple machines, and they're for sale. They're
Are
worth
they
money.
selling for $375,000 like this one did here?
What?
This is an original Apple I computer from the 70s, sold at auction in 2018 for $375,000.
Oh
Wow.
my goodness! I
I
just
don't think
remember
he has
playing,
that one.
Probably not.
I wonder if it had Castle Wolfenstein loaded.
Oh, that's funny. That's very funny.
I was thinking Oregon Trail. We're going to take a quick break. You're listening to Money on Tap. You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or email us at info@yourmoneyontap.com. Now, we are going to be coming back here talking about Monte Carlo, and it's not a vacation, folks. Hi, my name is Seth Krusman, partner with Brayshaw Financial Group and one of the co-hosts of Money on Tap. One of the biggest concerns and largest expenses people face today is taxes. Without thoughtful planning, taxes can destroy future retirement dollars, eliminating the possibility of a timely retirement or dreams of what you want retirement to look like. If you're like most people, you're getting closer and closer to retirement, and you may be wondering if you're taking the right steps. Will my income be enough? Will rising taxes force me to give up my dreams? How does inflation factor into all of this? These are real concerns, and you're not alone. Putting a plan around your financial future is what we do. If you have questions when it comes to your financial security, and if you're looking for a personalized solution, contact us at Brayshaw Financial Group, 855-226-8551. It's time for you to start getting answers to your questions. Headquartered in Bedford, New Hampshire, Brayshaw Financial has offices across the country. We'd love the opportunity to show you how we can help. There's absolutely no cost or obligation to meet with us. Call us at 855-226-8551. 855-226-8551.
And now here's more Money on Tap with Ben, John, Seth, and Eric.
Welcome back. You're listening to Money on Tap, your personal finance headquarters, where we bring out the professionals, experience, and some fun in what we call three-dimensional investing, utilizing insurance, brokerage, and fee-based planning. Today, we are talking about Monte Carlo. More than a cool place to visit, folks. The Monte Carlo is a tool that we use regularly in planning, and we're going to get down to it.
So this is not talking about travel, although we probably would all like to go to Monte Carlo someday, but this is a great idea. We're looking forward to talking about this. Yeah. You're already there. We're not going to take a deep dive into this, but I'll have to tell you this. I think this is a pretty important subject for everyone that's listening. As advisors, there are certainly some things that we are very, very careful about when we're working with our clients' money. And one of the most important things, guys, I think we'd all agree, is the fact that we have someone that comes to us with their retirement dollars. We want to make those dollars last as long as possible. Now we talk about silly little things, about such things as selling Boy Scout memorabilia and this and that to make extra money and all. But the fact is, when it comes to financial planning, it's very, very important to take the proper steps to make sure that that money can last as long as possible. There's a tool that we use, and it's called a Monte Carlo simulation. We're going to get into that a little bit about how it became known as that, but we don't necessarily use this tool every day, but it can be helpful for clients to understand how it works. So from here, let's get started talking about Monte Carlo and how it came to be known as this.
Well, before we jump right into the topic itself, I think we have an article here to go through and talk about Monte Carlo, but honestly, Monte Carlo is the test of seeing how the probability or the likelihood of you outliving your money. Making sure your money outlives you more so in that case, and that you have enough. I think the thing is that Monte Carlo has been a standard in our industry. And, matter of fact, when we do financial plans, we run 1,000 different Monte Carlo simulations just to see the likelihood and percentage of hit and miss, in different pieces. I would say invariably that everyone that walks through our office has the concern of, I need lifetime income. I need to make sure I don't run out of money. And we talk to people all the time about the fact that, you have one chance to make retirement successful. And you need to make sure you make the right choices, and who you do business with and how you do that is really probably the first step. So you have to find someone you trust, and you have to find somebody who understands the pieces. But there's a lot of pieces all the way up until the day of retirement. So you have this kind of what we call the accumulation phase, right, John? We talk about this all the time with people. How you're accumulating money in these early years and so forth. And then you have the distribution phase.
Totally separate, right? So one starts, one stops, and one starts.
Yeah. And a lot of people think this is a light switch scenario. Like, oh, I'm going to retire tomorrow. I got to move my 401k over and do this and do that. It's like, but honestly, I think we all know that a light switch scenario is not the very best, but that's when a lot of people actually come and see us, unfortunately. But we do the best we can. But then at that distribution phase is where the Monte Carlo statistics come into play. So, there's kind of two phases: maximizing the front end, trying to get the most. We have a couple points on that for people with 401k, some tips that we're going to add in the show today. And then on top of it, we have the Monte Carlo piece, where we're going to walk through what Monte Carlo is, the statistics behind it, the percentages that drive that, and so forth to create the income. But then there's a final piece to this, too, that I think I'd like to touch on in the show. And we haven't really chatted about it too much, John, but how much of that money you get to keep. Right? So every distribution dollar that comes to you, what is the value after taxes and expenses and so forth that you get to keep? Because it's not about how much money you're distributing. It's about how much of that money you get to keep in your pocket to spend on your retirement.
And, Ben, that is really the focus of the article from Financial Advisors, the name of a publication that we get as advisors. It's an interesting article. It's titled Withdrawal Rates for Asset Preservationists. Now, it doesn't sound all that exciting, but the fact is it's written by a guy named Evan Siminoff on April 1st of 2019 here. But he's basically talking
Actually,
about...
for all of you who hate numbers, it's not interesting at all.
Yeah. but here's the deal. There's a lot of academic studies out there and advisor conversations about retirement strategies that focus on withdrawal rates and how much people can actually withdraw from their portfolios not to run out of money. But there's a lot of clients out there who are really concerned about taking the money out too fast. I often compare it when I'm talking with clients. I often talk about the phase where we're putting money in, the accumulation phase. I often talk about it like filling up a Gatorade bucket. Remember those things you see on the sidelines where you see all the soccer players are around or the football players, whatever it may be? There's a big Gatorade bucket. It's full.
Oh, I see that. I see that every year with the Patriots.
Yes.
I knew he was going to do that.
Winning strategies again. But anyways, that Gatorade bucket gets so full. But the question is, when people start turning that on, when players start taking drinks, how long will it last? And that is basically the same issue that we have with money. How long is the money going to last inside of that retirement plan? So it used to be in the past that people would say, well, you can definitely take out 5% a year without worrying about running out of money.
People walk in all the time and say, how much can I take out of this thing? I don't want to run out of money. How much? What's my percent, John? What can I take out of this thing?
So there's really a confluence of factors that are going on here. So the fact is that people are living longer and longer. We have historically low interest rates. We have high stock prices that are prompting some advisors to kind of think about this subject. Can people really take out 5% a year, or should it be closer to 4 or 4.5%? And think about this. Let's say that you were in charge, and this is your new job title. Imagine that you were charged with managing maybe $100 million endowment with the goal of allowing it to give away money in perpetuity at a 3% rate. So if you gave money away at a 3% rate, well, you may be fine, but what if you kicked that up to 5%? What would happen? Would the money run out? And that's the question that a lot of people need to pull for their own retirement. Hey, if you have a nest egg of $500,000, how much of that can you afford on a regular basis to take out of that plan?
I think and people say, wow, 3%, 5%, they don't sound like big differences, right? I mean, why could going from 3 to 3.5 to 4, 4.5 or 5% really change my likelihood of running out of money? I mean, in the world of financial planning, a lot of people use annuities to provide, some sort of income program that, people get more, feeling of security with guarantees and stuff like that with. But when it comes to really just doing straight up investing, stocks, bonds, mutual funds, whatever it is that you're buying, and you're saying, I'm not going to wrap this thing with something else. I'm going to just buy this market. Why is it so complicated? Because I see, John, I mean, some people walk through the door and say, well, I've been averaging, 5, 6, 7%. I mean, I'm not way down below 5%. I mean, I've been, happy.
So why shouldn't I be able to pull out the 5?
Why shouldn't I be able to pull out the 5? What people don't understand, and it's not an intelligence issue. What people don't understand is the theory of the compounded loss in a portfolio.
Kind of like sequence of returns, Ben, if you think about that.
Yeah.
You mean, so let's just say that someone has a portfolio. Let's say in the first few years they actually lose money in that portfolio. they have to make an awful lot of money back up to be able to bring that money back up to the original amount.
Yeah, let's say your portfolio. Let's say someone walks through our door and says, "Oh, I've been averaging at XYZ company over 10%, so I'm going to plan on pulling 10% out of my portfolio now." Well, if someone comes in the door and they have $100,000 and they pull out 10% or $10,000 from their portfolio, okay, so now they have $90,000, and over the next 12 months, the market has a negative 10% return too. Okay, now that would bring you down to 81% of your money. Now the problem is that if the market just recovers, forget you taking out additional money there. Just say the market recovers 10%. You're not even going to get back to the 90,000 you had to begin with. You need 24% plus just to get back to square one.
And what kind of risk do you need to take in order to get that 24%?
Yeah, to outperform the market 240%. That means you have to outperform the market, which most average investors can't do. And that's why how these returns play out in the compounded loss. And we call compounded losses if you have loss after loss after loss or withdrawal plus a loss, that's compounding on itself. Even though withdrawal is not a loss, it's still a reduction in value and creates more difficulty. Now, I use 10% simply just to make it easy for people to understand, but the same scenario applies in every situation. Matter of fact, when we run illustrations, and you can run a zillion different illustrations, if you start up on one good, great, strong year in an illustration,
it can make all the difference.
It can make all the difference in how beautiful that thing looks.
Yeah.
But if you start in a negative year, it changes the whole complexity and success of that scenario. And that's why it's so important to realize you have one chance to do this well. You have one chance to be successful. And the reason that is so complicated is you don't know if you're unsuccessful until you're well into your 80s or 90s. Right? You can't go back to work then. That's the time period.
Your options are certainly limited. Yeah.
Yeah. That's the time period when, kind of going backwards is over. Like if you're 62 and you decide to do an early retirement in the first few years, the market's not performing and so forth, well, maybe you go pick up a part-time job to recoup that scenario. But if you really make the wrong choice and you have a bad decision here, 20 years down the road, there's no turning around. And that's a big deal.
So the big deal that we want to help our clients with, and we're going to get into Monte Carlo here in just a minute, but the big deal that we want to help our clients with is helping them to determine, helping them to make great choices when it comes to the amount of money that they're going to be using. There's a lot that goes into that. And Seth, I know we can talk about, and I know often what you're doing with your clients, Seth, is you're taking a look at retirement and you're taking a look at the expenses they have right now and projecting them forward. And basically, when we do that, we can get a better understanding of what to expect as far as the funds lasting, those retirement funds lasting in retirement.
Yeah, I think something that the article does a good job of establishing or understanding is that relationship that people, or the expectation that they have of how supportive, for one, how much should their portfolio be growing year over year, and what kind of a distribution they can be taking off of that. And the expectations have shifted. And one of the things that the article points out here is about a wealthy family that took a survey of private banks and the sort of investment returns they expect over the next 20 years. Most of the investment firms throughout the world apparently looking through rose-colored glasses for marketing purposes, right? We understand how that could be attractive to people, saying a return that's higher than what other people are truly articulating would be, attractive, right? But the Wharton professor approached the 4 private banks without brokerage arms, and this was what the results were. The 4 firms expected the bonds return of 3.4% to 3.6%, and stocks generated between 4.4% and 7.2% after being adjusted for a 2% expected inflation rate. So the fixed income returns fell to a 1.4% to 1.6% range, while the equities fell to a 2.4% to a 5.1% range. Basically a decline from historical returns or an expectation of somewhere around 7%. That and those numbers, those shifts in those numbers are dramatic when people are you're looking for one thing, you're expecting one thing, and so you're taking a distribution, maybe say 5% off of your portfolio, expecting a 7% kind of a return where you're not really getting the numbers and the expectation around those numbers correctly, which is certainly a far more conservative approach. And that's one of the things I think we get challenged by, is really trying to have conversations that are significant and meaningful around what an expectation or the possibility of not just now, what's happening with the market now, but likelihood of the next 20 years, because that's what we have to be able to try to plan through together. Sometimes the reaction is, well, I'm not so sure about what we're talking about here. I'm not feeling confident about those numbers, but really the opposite is what we're trying to accomplish here is we really want to build confidence towards the future.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you look at 2001 to 2010, and this article gets into that, the return on the S&P was like 1.4%. And a lot of people who are entering retirement are hearing the woes of that from friends who have retired earlier, people who have been in retirement for a number of years. Now, in the more recent past, the market's been up and down pretty crazy, but it's been a general upswing. But when you look at that first decade of the century being such a low rate of return and having those, 3 recessionary experiences in that one decade, if you started retirement in 2007, 2008 was going back to work. But some people retired in 2001, and by 2010 they were hurting. The problem is you don't know when you're going to retire, whether it's going to be a good decade or a bad decade.
Right.
And that's why responsibility and the amount of percentages in which you take money out is so crucial, because you need to prepare for both.
So let's do this. Let's do a little history lesson here and talk a little bit about Monte Carlo and talk about just about how it came about and really the tool that we use quite often with clients. So it does go without saying that risk is always a part of investing, even if you play it safe, even if you're in CDs, there's a risk there. There's an inflation risk there that you have. So analyzing your risk level and predicting how it can affect your investments is going to be really crucial for you as an investor. One of the more popular ways to do this is known as the Monte Carlo simulation. But we keep on saying Monte Carlo, but what is it? And how?
Because it's fun to say.
Yeah, it is fun to say.
Everybody wants to say Monte Carlo.
I want to visit it after doing this show.
Go ahead.
But
Try it out.
but it can accurately
Monte Carlo.
It can
Monte
help.
Carlo.
It can help predict your investment incomes. So let's just say this: the Monte Carlo simulation was actually created in the late 40s by a guy named Stanislaw Ulam. Now, I don't encourage you folks having kids out there to name your kids Stanislaw, but nonetheless, that was his name. And he was a brilliant Polish-American mathematician. So he worked on the Manhattan Project, which had developed the first atomic bomb. But he also discovered cellular automation and planted the seeds for the development of nuclear pulse propulsion. But the story goes that he was recovering from brain surgery and whiling the hours away by playing countless games of solitaire over and over and over again. He became fascinated with plotting the outcome of each game in order to observe the card's distribution and to see what the probability of winning would be. So these observations led him to develop what was called the Monte Carlo simulation. They call it the Monte Carlo model. But it was in partnership with a colleague of his, John von Neumann. They named it after the glamorous gambling capital of Monaco, since it deals with chance and random outcomes that are not unlike what you'd find in a game of roulette. So a pretty crazy thing. They named it after a gambling, a probability factor, and that's basically what it was named
makes
after.
sense. Which makes sense.
Well, while you are trying to say some words like nuclear pulse propulsion or Stanislaw Ulam 10 times over without tripping over that, hey, we're going to take a quick break at Money on Tap, and you can reach us at 855-226-8551 or email us at info@yourmoneyontap.com. I promise you, when we come back, we're going to talk more about Monte Carlo.
On this Cliff Notes edition of Money on Tap, Seth, Ben, and John have a discussion about wills and the alarming percentage of boomers who have neglected to have a will in place.
Statistically, 44% of boomers still don't have a will. 44%.
Yeah, it's huge.
Yeah, but 57% people don't think they're going to have any money to pass on. So they're saying, well, why waste the money on a will, because I'm going to spend it all anyways.
Well, that's true, because then you're right. The 35% plan to spend whatever money they have left on themselves. But, there's always the what-if scenario. Like, what if I don't make it to that day where I've just completely cashed out?
We have people, they walk through the door, I sit down with people, and they're like, you know what? If I die and there's money there and someone's got to figure it out, well, let it be their problem. I don't want to worry about,
make them work for it.
Yeah, and it's like, well, it could be more efficient, and you save a lot of money that you've worked really hard for to pass on to your family or friends or charities or whatever. And they're like, I don't care. I'm not going to care because I'm not going to be here.
Sometimes it's interesting to get all these different perspectives that we get a chance to get a bird's eye view of. And we have different perspectives ourselves. I know that when we're talking about our own families and our own family's plan, John is different from Ben, is different from me in how we're planning what our intentions are. And so all across the board, no judgment, people, just interesting to find out what the numbers are.
I think one thing that's not monetary around doing proper estate planning and doing these documents is preserving the family unit. Because if you leave this thing just...
not buttoned up.
Yeah, not buttoned up. You're going to create a huge amount of strife and stress inside the family unit. Even if you don't have an I love you will, as they call it, to your spouse, it can be frustrating. It's complicated. And if you don't make this thing neat and clean, it's just going to create unnecessary problems inside your family. Who cares how much money they do or don't get? If you don't want them to...
they all hate each other after you're gone.
Yeah, what did you really accomplish? I think that's the non-monetary thing to focus on in this area.
Thanks for joining us for this Cliff Notes edition of Money on Tap, with great tips from the pros in three-dimensional investing, utilizing insurance, brokerage, and fee-based planning. And now here's more Money on Tap with Ben, John, Seth, and Eric.
Welcome back. You're listening to Money on Tap, your personal finance headquarters. You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or email us at info@yourmoneyontap.com. Hey, we also want to take a moment to thank our podcast listeners out there. We appreciate the subscriptions and the downloads and the likes. That's all part of what we're doing at Money on Tap, is getting some information out there for people to use in their personal finance experience, in this journey that we're on together towards retirement or towards whatever those goals are. We're talking about the Monte Carlo. For those of you that are not familiar with what the Monte Carlo is, John did a great job on the Monte Carlo scenarios. Basically, what are we looking for in that? We're trying to test portfolios or retirement ideas against thousands of simulations of what could be happening to find, is this going to be successful?
I think when it comes to Monte Carlo, right, getting there is the entire journey. It's getting to the point where you're saying, I'm ready to retire. What's the percentage I can take out and so forth? But getting that number up high enough, getting that number to a place where Monte Carlo in a straight investment strategy makes sense.
And Ben, you're saying during the accumulation phase, right? So how can we help build those dollars up as much as we can so that we have more money in order to create a better situation there?
Yeah. I mean, people say to us all the time, it's like, well, hey, what's your number? Remember those old, I talk about it before, those old ING commercial, what's your number? In reality, we don't really work that way. I mean, financial planners don't do that. We ask, what's your income need? That's really where we work. And then we figure out how to find the right pieces to make it work. But in this strategy, if you were to kind of back into what's your number, the truth is you gotta really understand how to increase that dollar amount in the most advantageous way. There's kind of like 4 standard ways. One of the articles that we had, I grabbed this off of, is 4 dangerous mistakes you're making with your 401k. And the first one, and this is one of those areas I could go either way on depending on what kind of investment you're doing, but knowing what you're paying for investment fees, but knowing that you're paying the right amount of fees for that type of investment would probably be the better way of saying that.
I think one of the biggest questions you have to ask yourself is, does my company have a 401k? It's a simple question. And when's the last time you took the time to speak with someone about the details of that plan? So this can be someone in the HR department. It can also be someone who is coming in once a year to review these things with you. And so using that as a framework for these 4 tips, I think, is important, because most of the time people just don't know what they're doing at all, and they need to ask the question.
Yeah, and I mean, the thing about the investment fees is that each of the investment options have different fees. A lot of people don't realize that. So that's one thing you want to evaluate. And 2, right, your old 401ks, right, that might be sitting out there, you might have account fees that you might be able to consolidate into one account and reduce the overall fees. Some people have 3 or 4 401ks that they had for working a couple of years here, a couple of years there.
Definitely seen that, yeah.
Yeah, bring those together, reduce your fees. Give yourself more volume of dollars to deal with the fee structures and so forth. Number 2, this is interesting. I don't know if I entirely agree with this, but sticking with your plan's default investment options, I think for most people, if you don't know what you're doing investment-wise, almost every 401k plan has an education hotline of some sort, or meet with someone like us or another advisor and show them your sub account or your account options, and start making some really wise decisions. Invest according to your risk or ability to take risk.
Every one of these 401ks is going to have some defaults, right? If you do not make a selection for yourself and you're contributing, then it's going to go towards what's suited for your age and your expected time of retirement. They call that a target date fund. But here's what a lot of people don't know about that is sometimes those fees can be higher than maybe some of the other investment selections as well. Maybe where you're at in retirement, this is not the right vehicle for you. It can see with what little limited window of information it has to do something for you, and it has to do that.
Number 3 is not contributing enough to get your employer match. We often have people ask, how much should I be contributing? And one of the most common answers that we always give is, hey, at least contribute up to your employer match. So if your employer is going to give you free money, take it. We don't always recommend that people max out their 401ks because we think there's some different things that make more sense for people. We're not going to get into it right now, but just talking about tax scenarios down the road, it may not be wise to have $1 zillion in your 401k. Maybe having it in some other areas would be smart to consider. But at least take full advantage of your employer match if you are fortunate enough to have one.
The number 4 here, this is an interesting one, and a lot of people don't give this a lot of thought when thinking about jobs, employment, and time horizon, and it's becoming more of a play by employers, which is a vesting schedule. Some of these programs have vesting schedules that basically to get your money or your entire employer's money that they're matching is to stay for a certain period of time. And I have seen people leave early.
Not even knowing that they're going to lose something.
Yeah, it's not even part of the view. It's like, oh, I got this job. They're going to give me a bonus. I'm going to get more money. But they could be losing a lot in their 401k or their retirement plan, where if they just stayed another 6 months or maybe even a year, and sometimes it's the move is right, but for just going laterally about the same, this, that, and the other thing, vesting schedules are missed by a lot of people. They don't even realize.
So the important thing is have the conversation. Have the conversation.
And it also could turn into a negotiation piece for you at the new firm because, hey, you want me to leave earlier? Well, this is what I'm giving up for it. So if you take a look at it and plan for it, you may even be able to recoup it.
That's a great point, Eric.
We also see a lot of that with the stock options that are being given today by companies. There's something like a vesting schedule there as well. But strategies around, we've seen so many people that come in and they have $1 million in stock options coming their way, not vested, but as a percentage of their assets, it's a huge portion. And it winds up being potential liability there with how much percentage of their assets that are held with one company, one stock, ultimately. Hey, we're going to go ahead and move on to the Monte Carlo. This is my favorite part of the show, where we actually dig into the content that we've developed here and try to articulate what is going on from a planning perspective around the Monte Carlo. The Monte Carlo simulation is what it's often referred to here. There's some ways that we can take a look at planning, right? We've talked about accumulation and distribution. Well, how successful is that going to be based off of some of the parameters that we put around that? And if we were to spend our time working through the numbers individually, right? Let's just say John grabs one simulation, Ben takes one simulation, Eric takes another, I take another. And maybe, hey, you out there, you guys grab one each. Well, maybe there's 6 different simulations that we're running there. That's a good start, right? But it doesn't really offer us the true bandwidth here or the scenario that the Monte Carlo simulation is going to run. These are going to be thousands of simulations that are run, giving us, all sorts of data and information towards ultimately what's the probability of you finding success based off of those parameters, again, that we kind of put into this or pour into this. So we want to find that success. We really want to try to find what is going to be successful here.
So the Monte Carlo simulation actually lets you see all of the possible outcomes of your decisions, and it helps assess the risk of those decisions. So it allows really for better decision-making in the face of uncertainty when you really don't know what's going to happen. So essentially, it's a computer-based model. It's a mathematical technique that lets people account for risk in quantitative analysis and decision-making. So it provides all the possible outcomes out there that are possible for any given choice. And that can make a huge difference. So let's talk about what that looks like. So Ben, if I come into you and you're the financial advisor and I say, hey, I have $500,000 here, and I tell you, I think I really feel comfortable with pulling out 7% a year. I just do. The market's been good. I've been doing really, really well in my 401k, so I feel really comfortable with taking 7% out. And Ben says, well, John, let's take a look at this Monte Carlo.
Well, I think, everybody in the room agrees. That seems reasonable.
I would think so.
Why wouldn't we? Why not?
Yeah, go ahead. Try it.
Let's see what happens. Let's find out if that works or not.
I think the safe move is to, and what's really interesting about Monte Carlo is in the last 5 and 10 years, there has been all this new mathematical data that's come out in Monte Carlo because the last decade was so horrendous and so complicated. It has sent their numbers way down. It used to be about 5% was a 90 some odd percent likelihood or something like that. Now it's, to get that same 90%, it's, I don't know, it's around 4 or something like that, or just below 4. I can't remember exactly what the number is, but I was listening to a presentation on that, 6 months or a year ago. And when you look at this scenario, what I would probably say to somebody in a straight investment portfolio who's going to say, how do I do this? I would grab a conservative number at 3%. Let's say we go to that bottom floor level of 3% that people are talking about in this article, the article before. And if your market starts up on an up year and you continue to have better years, then what I would do is I would start increasing the percentage slowly. And that way you're always ahead of the game. So if you start with $100,000 and you take your 3% out and the market does 7, then maybe the next year you take out 3.1, and just slowly, continue to move that thing in that direction. So that's one thing that I would probably encourage people to do is to see, because you don't want to be on the down decade, and having a little bit of that gain pop into your account so that you can actually start seeing profit inside your portfolio, that will help pad the down years, that compounded loss we talked about earlier. What I really fear for a lot of investors in this world is twofold. What I see kind of going down in the future is that we have about, I think it's 60 or 70% of the financial planners in this world are baby boomers. That means they're going to be retiring over the next 10 and 20 years, which we're not baby boomers. So that means the amount of advice available is going to drop way down. I think also the ability to withdraw your funds in a way in a marketplace that is, crazy and, moving all the time, ups and downs, is going to become more complicated. I don't think it's getting easier. I think it's getting more complicated because all the statistics on using alternative investments and hedge funds and all this crazy stuff doesn't improve the likelihood of Monte Carlo very much, if at all. And so there's no really easy answer to managing your money. And that's why finding the right partner and finding people who can really be there for the long term to deal with these types of issues, to know how to manage your dollars in and out. Because what's going to happen is you're going to go to a large corporation and you're going to get generic advice that when it doesn't work out and you're out of money, they've got nothing to lose. There's no worries for them. You want somebody who's emotionally invested in your future as much as you are. And that's one thing that I think this Monte Carlo conversation is so much bigger than just me not outliving my money. It's outliving your advice. It's outliving help.
So what I think is pretty interesting about technology today is the fact that there's a number of different online calculators which can help you to input your personal information. There's really a ton of different variables that are involved in that. The variables would be, the portfolio type, your additions, subtractions, tax brackets, and all that. But once you are able to enter all these in, it can really give you a better probability of success. I know, Ben, that's one of the things that you're often talking to clients about is the probability of success, and make sure you have a successful experience here. But I think it's really important to make sure that when people are talking to us and they're talking about what their expectations are, and they say to us, hey, I want to take out 7% a year. Well, you can do certainly whatever you want to. It's your money. But one of the things we're going to help you do is to help you determine, well, how long will that money last? Is it going to last 15 years, you doing it your way, or is there a better way in which to approach that?
And I have met people who have those agendas to pull out a specific amount of money because they owned a second home that they weren't going to use after a period of time and sell that and then use those dollars. You know? But there's assumptions made in the ability, one, to sell that property, and two, what it will be worth at that time.
There are some great ways for people to start to gather this information on their own as well. I think John kind of briefly touched on those. If you're looking out there for kind of that self-help program, there's, the Vanguard Retirement Nest Egg Calculator, the Super Geek was one of them. They some of these are robust calculators, and definitely people that want to DIY, roll up their sleeves and do that. One of the things I think that's kind of missing in some of that, just as from a planning perspective, is access to different programs that we as advisors have, just a different perspective of what's available, different ways to approach problem solving, different tools is primarily what we look at these as, is not only these retirement calculators. If you're looking for instance, if you're kind of wondering what is that risk, what is that potential return on my portfolio, you can go ahead to brayshawfinancial.com, take a look at Riskalyze tool that's there, import your information, get an understanding of around where's my risk, what should I be expecting based off of that. And then on the backside of that, there's some great articulation around the probability, again, around that Monte Carlo that we can have a conversation around. On your own, you might be, doing your best and using some of those, the tools that you have, your 401k available, pouring in some of these assets that you're developing right now, at least 2 or 3 other conversations at a minimum of what we could do to try to shift the needle. And some of that really becomes, again, a conversation around 1%. That's really what we've started the conversation here around. We talked about Yale and the endowment there, them shifting their expectation to about 0.5% for bonds to return after, the inflation-adjusted returns. Those are some of the percentages that are very minute but make huge differences in outcomes.
There are a lot of different ways to make money in this industry. And I think a lot of people, as we wrap up, a lot of people are trying to look for that, that golden egg, how to make money and beat the market. And a lot of people try to simplify things down. I'll just take this much money out. And I don't want to make our industry too complex, but it is complex. And it is a lot of moving pieces, and there's a lot of ways to solve problems depending on what your goals are. Sometimes when novice investors are trying to simplify things down and they don't understand the complexities around all the different pieces, something like taking 7% out, or investing in this strategy, or this always worked for me, doesn't mean it's always going to be the right way, and it doesn't always mean it's the best way. And that's where real advice, whether it's us or somebody else, comes into play, and knowing that you're getting good advice. I mean, I don't want to, hey, it's so complicated you can't get it. I don't believe that, but I do believe our industry is complicated enough that you do need help. And, that's really what we're here to do, is try to give you enough information to, one, while you're in this accumulation phase, grow your assets as best you possibly can. And when you get to the distribution phase, make sure you never run out of money.
I love what you're saying there, Ben. We want things to be as simple as possible, right? We want you to be able to grab hold of what is happening in this part of your life and this experience that you're looking forward to, making it something that is simple in the way that you own it, but having us address the potential for the complexity in your life that you just haven't had that experience or had the foresight, so that we can have those conversations ahead of you, clearing away the things that you don't need to spend your time investing in. You need to spend time investing in you, in your plan, and what makes sense for you. That's what we're hoping to bring to the table here. And I hope you've enjoyed today's show. Practical and helpful is what we're trying to accomplish here. We want to help you in your financial planning in this journey towards a successful retirement. You've been listening to Money on Tap. You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or info@yourmoneyontap.com. Again, thank you for our podcast listeners. Thanks for the subscriptions and the downloads and the likes, all that stuff. We really appreciate out there. We look forward to talking to you. Have a great week.
The views expressed are not necessarily the opinion of this radio station and should not be construed directly or indirectly as an offer to buy or sell any securities mentioned herein. Investing is subject to risks, including loss of principal invested. No strategy, product, material, or tool mentioned can assure a profit nor protect against loss. Please note that individual situations can vary. Therefore, the information, products, materials, or tools mentioned should be relied upon when coordinated with individual professional advice. Past performance is not a guarantee of future results. This show may be subsidized in whole or in part by a product sponsor or issuer. Securities and advisory services offered through SagePoint Financial Incorporated, member FINRA SIPC, and a registered investment advisor. All other services offered through Brayshaw Financial Group LLC are independent of SagePoint Financial. SagePoint Financial and Brayshaw Financial Group do not provide tax or legal advice. Main office is located at 116 South River Road, Bedford, New Hampshire, 03110, and can be reached at toll-free 855-226-8551.